Well, there we have it. Louie SIbley has moved on, is taking up an option to join Oxford United on a long-term contract for the foreseeable future. Now, I've got a few feelings about this, and whether I'm happy about the deal or not doesn't really matter, but I've got a few things that I'd like to say about Louie SIbley because I personally believe he has shown quite a lot in his short time since breaking into the first team. Yes, he's made an abundance of first team appearances, but I do think on occasion he's been very, very hard done to, whether that be by management or other things going off. So that's something we're going to get into in this video. But before we do that, make sure you do hit that subscribe button down below or in this top corner. Stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County, EFL Championship and League One content. That is going to be heading your way over the course of the coming season. So make sure you smash the subscribe button and smash that like button. Let me know your thoughts on Louie SIbley's move to Oxford United down in the comments, and I'll try and reply to every single one. So yeah, Louie SIbley moving on after, in my opinion, I am quite surprised that he's ended up moving on. I think I really was expecting him to sign a new contract at the club. I thought love for the club sometimes can drive you through when you're not necessarily playing where you want to play or getting as much game time as you want. And unfortunately, SIbley decided that it was best for him to make that move elsewhere for the betterment of his career. Do I necessarily disagree with that? Probably not. I think he needed to move on for himself because at the end of the day, he wasn't going to get to play number 10 at Derby County. And I think the problem really was the way he burst onto the scene, and he really, really did burst onto the scene. I think he made his first appearance off the bench against Reading, then played a really nice game. I think it was against Man United in one of the cups. Scored a screamer against Blackburn Rovers. Then obviously COVID happened. Ended that season after scoring a hat-trick at Millwall away. And put in some really, really good performances that year. And then into the next year, obviously that's when Derby County started to suffer their financial problems, which obviously gave the likes of Louie SIbley, Jason Knight, Morgan Whittaker, Lee Buchanan, obviously Cashin as well towards the back end of it, all their opportunity to break into the first team. Now, Louie SIbley initially went on a run, I think it was about 10 or 11 starts in a row playing in that number 10 position. I think he got 5 goals and 2 assists in that run. Now, that was not sustainable. He wasn't going to carry on doing that. And if he had have done, he wouldn't have stayed at Derby County for much longer. Now, there obviously was an opportunity at the end of that first season where he could have gone to, I believe it was Leeds for around £7 million. And obviously, Derby being Derby, don't cash in. Which I'm not necessarily fussed that we didn't cash in at that point, but then the treatment and where we played him the following season and since then, I think realistically he probably regrets not pushing more for that move. But obviously he went on to make 173 appearances for the club. I believe he made 100 starts in that time, 20 goals, 12 assists, 8,920 minutes. For Derby County's first team. Obviously, abundance of appearances coming up through the academy. I believe he was at the academy from under 8s all the way through, which is obviously absolutely massive. He's known nothing other than Derby County throughout his footballing career. And obviously, we've seen Max Bird move on, Jason Knight move on, Whittaker obviously moved on, back under Wayne Rooney. And I think it probably gave SIbley an idea of what it's like outside of Derby. And I do think that realistically, other than Philip Cocu, no manager really gave Louie SIbley the keys. That's the best way I can describe it, is giving him the keys. Obviously, under Cocu, when he broke in, he formed that amazing partnership with Chris Martin and Martin Waghorn and Tom Lawrence. But then the following season, Martin and Waghorn. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn on the notification bell and hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts on Louie SIbley's move to Oxford United down in the comment section, and let me know what sort of videos you want to see in the Championship season, whether that be for Derby County, the League or League One. Let me know what sort of things you do want to see. And if you have not done so already, make sure you've hit that subscribe button, and I'll let you get back to the video. Couldn't renew their contracts because of our financial difficulties. Jack Marriott is sort of was sort of like a similar sort of type of player. Yes, Sibley wanted the ball to feet and to run at people, but Marriott sort of got in each other's way quite a lot, and he ended up sort of playing as like a second striker to start off that season. Then obviously dropped out the fold for a little bit, and then Wayne Rooney just never really gave him the opportunity in the 10. Ended up playing a lot of games out wide, which I understand why, based on his skill set of liking to carry the ball, picking up the ball and things like that, but he was not a wide player. He wasn't a speedster. Yes, he could beat a man, but that wasn't what he was good at. And then obviously under Rosenior, he sort of got, I want to say 3 or 4 games to start off that season in that number 10 role, mainly in the cup, because I believe he started the season injured, or he started the season on the bench because we had Horahan sort of playing that 10 role. So it was sort of one of those for me where Rosenior gave him the opportunity, but then Rosenior obviously didn't last longer than 12, 13 games, so didn't really get the opportunity to fully flourish under Liam Rosenior. And then obviously Paul Warne's come in. I think he's played 3, 4 games in the number 10 position, maybe 5, since Paul Warne took the job. And for me, I just think it's a bit poor. And I personally do think that in 5 years' time, we're probably going to regret the decision to let Louie SIbley go. Now, obviously, he's signed for Oxford on a long-term deal. I've mentioned that earlier on. Now, I'm unsure whether we're entitled to compensation. I believe the rule is under 24s that have come through that have spent years in the academy, and if you offer them the same or better terms than their previous deal, would make us entitled to compensation. Now, I believe Oxford have put it out as a free transfer. Now, we've had that before with Lee Buchanan, Nathan Byrne, Louis Watson was initially a free transfer to Luton, but then eventually a package was paid, 6-figure package for Louis Watson. So it's one of those where if we are entitled, I think we're entitled to around £500,000. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't know Paul Warne's thoughts on him. Obviously, we know he came into the side playing left back, left wing back, and realistically, I think there was a plan for Louie SIbley going forward, playing in that position and building into that position, because I think he really did a good job last season. And obviously, going up to the Championship, you've got much better wingers to come up against. But I really thought SIbley really developed his game. Now, the big point that I'm really made about earlier when I was talking about previous managers and not really giving him the keys is the fact of a statement he made to Oxford's media when agreeing the deal, where he mentioned about how he wants to play midfield. Now, that tells me that Derby County have told him he's not going to be a guaranteed midfielder. Now, obviously, you can't guarantee you're going to play here, because sometimes you might have to fill out places with injuries and stuff like that. But it definitely seems that Oxford have sort of gone, you know what, Louis, we want you to play we want you as our number 10. We know what you can do. We know what you're capable of. And I, in my opinion, think he's going to... I think he's going to have a really good season. I think you've obviously got to be relative of where Oxford are going to be, and obviously we don't know that right now, where Oxford are going to be, and we won't know that really until about 10-12 games in, but I really do think that he's going to have a really good season with Oxford. Whether they go down, stay up, whatever happens with them, I think he's going to have a fairly decent season. I think he's going to be impactful in that number 10 role. And the big thing for me is, of his 173 senior appearances, he's made 41 in his favoured number 10 position, which I think is ridiculous. He's only made 16 since the end of 2021, the end of the 2021 season. 2,190 minutes since coming into the first team in that number 10 role, which I think is a joke. I genuinely do think it's a joke. He came through the academy in that 10-8 role, goal-scoring machine, tearing teams apart. Now, I completely understand that going from academy to men's football is very different, but the way he started off, although it was never going to carry on that way and he was going to go through slumps, he never had the opportunity that some of our other youngsters did, like Jason Knight, like Lee Buchanan as well, Jaden Bogle, if we go back to them times, and even Max Bird. Like, they'd have stinker on stinker on stinker back to back and would keep their place. Louie SIbley played a bad pass in our first half and was dragged. And the problem for me that came with Louie SIbley, especially in this season, was whenever he started, if we didn't play well, you knew it was SIbley who was going to get cut, that was going to get pulled off at half time. You just knew it was going to happen. Like, it wasn't even as if it was, he might take Bird off and change it up that way. He might take Tom Barkhazen off, or he might take one of the defenders off and put an extra forward on the pitch. You knew if Louie SIbley started and we didn't play well, SIbley would go. And I think it makes it really hard for a player to build up any sort of consistency, any sort of confidence in themselves and their own ability when they're not being able to play games. Now, I'm not saying he should get 10 back-to-back games if he drops 10 stinkers. That is not what I'm saying. But I saw, I'm going to use Max Bird as an example, in the season where we nearly got relegated, drop stinker after stinker, sort of game on game on game. I think there was one time where he went 4 or 5 games where he just didn't have a good game. And now, completely understand it's slightly different positions and shit like that, but it was one of those where they gave him the opportunity to work through the form. And you even look at someone like Conor Horahan last season, who had quite a rough patch but started every game. And for me, that's where my problem lies. Jason Knight had it as well, where he'd realistically do nothing and be ineffective apart from ratting about the pitch. And I understand that running and working hard is massive, but you can run around and have no impact on the game. And I think SIbley never got the opportunity to work through poor form, never got the opportunity to build into a position, never got the opportunity to really show what he's truly capable of. And whether in the end we do regret the decision doesn't really matter, but for me, I'm disappointed by the way the club has handled Louie SIbley over the course of the previous few seasons. And ultimately, obviously, nothing's my decision. I don't get to decide anything for Derby County. I don't get to decide who likes who gets to play where. But I do think if he was given a 10, 15 game run in that number 10 position in League One, I think he would have run the show. And I think what we've seen with Paul Warne, especially during the League One season, is that realistically our number 10s would be ineffective anyway, because I think we saw it massively last season when we went to that sort of 3-4-3. Yes, Nathaniel Manders-Lang was effective, but had nowhere near the output that he had when we was playing the 4-2-3-1, where he was out wide right or wide left, wherever he played. And I think there's a theme that's going to come with Paul Warne football, that your number 10s probably won't really do much. Obviously Mendes-Lang was one of our highest contributors last season, but the majority of them came from out wide. Obviously Barkhazen had a fairly decent spell, mainly playing out wide, and when they were both brought centrally, we sort of lost our touch a little bit. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Derby County are looking at a range of different players to obviously replace Louie SIbley. Obviously, with Ben Osborne coming in, maybe SIbley felt like he couldn't compete at left wing back, so he might as well go somewhere where he can play midfield. But then who knows? Ben Osborne might even play in midfield. So it's one of those for me where it's really, really difficult, this deal, because I'm just not sure. Because I like SIbley. I've always liked SIbley. I've always been a massive fan of his. And it's just one of those where I just find it really difficult that we've let him move. Well, I say let him. We did offer him a contract, but I'm not being funny. Louie SIbley is born and bred a Derby fan. So for me, I find it really difficult that it would even have been acceptable terms, or acceptable ideas on playing time and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying anyone should be guaranteed football. No one should be guaranteed anything. But I certainly do think that he should have been given the opportunity to play in that number 10 role, especially last season, the season before, where he never really got that opportunity. I think he played 5-6 games since Paul Warne came in, as I mentioned previous, in that 10 role. Had a couple of good games as well. You go back to Oxford. Who was it where he set up Bird on the edge of the box? There was one where he set up Bird on the edge of the box. I think there was one where he scored from the edge of the box as well. So it's just sort of one of those for me. You'll have to let me know your thoughts down in the comments on Louie SIbley moving clubs. For me, it's just one of those. Bit difficult to take, but you live and you learn. So, yeah. If you have not done so already, hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest content. Hit the like button as well to help push the video to brand new audiences. And I'll catch you in my next video. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.